Absolutely, never. Not in a million years. And again, it's this whole intuitive, and I struggle. My kids now have great pleasure in winding me up. I find it really difficult. We've got about 4 different remote controls at home for the TV and what have you. But we have the same thing today with video conferencing. If you use a Cisco system and then you go to Tandberg, the experience is completely different. And even within the single range of products from one manufacturer, it's a challenge to know, well, how do I make it cool? Do I go to the address book? What do I type in and look at? So we're not really helping our users and our community to deploy video. So let's have a look at what are the options that are out there today. So in this bottom left-hand corner, this is the traditional video conferencing that we've grown up with over the last sort of 20, 25 years. The quality is questionable unless you've got it on an MPLS network, and the cost, as we know, can be pretty high once you start adding up all of the furniture for these rooms, the bridging costs, and all the rest of it. And typically, because they get deployed into these shared meeting rooms, they're never really laid out for video conferencing. So you're kind of vaguely aware that this chap's coming on video. And in most cases, they're not typically utilized that well. On average, between sort of 10 hours a month, which is pretty low when you consider the investment. So a few years ago, some of our industry leaders said, well, okay, what we'll do is we'll create a whole new experience for our users called telepresence. So what we'll do is we'll custom build rooms. So we'll make sure then that the users are sat around the screens. And what we'll do is each room that we deploy, we'll deploy identically. So then when you are looking at the screens, you get this impression that you are actually sat in the same room as your remote participants. And what they do is they call this immersive and natural. Well, I struggle with the fact that it's immersive because you've got 56-inch monitors sat in front of you. And you're just very much aware that you've got this massive big bank of technology in front of you. So I still don't find it really immersive and natural. Having said that, as far as the user experience goes, it is 100 times better than traditional video conferencing. The networks that are provided are huge, so there's no issue with bandwidth. The technology coding that they use allows you to deliver 720 or 1080p. So it's getting close to broadcast TV quality, and the audio setups in those rooms just make it 10 times better. One of the big issues with telepresence is it's going to cost you between £300,000 and £500,000 per room. So multiply that out by the number of rooms you think you want, plus the £20,000 to £30,000 a month network costs to support it all. And we're kind of back where we started from. It's like, yeah, it's kind of great, we want it, but we can't really justify that cost. So we then kind of look down at the other end of the scale, and we've got our MSNs, our Skypes, our Link, and we've got to give them credit. They do what they're supposed to do. They do give you an affordable access into video, and they bring it down to the desktop, and they allow you to access it across the internet. But from a corporate perspective, does it offer you security? Does it offer you the ability to integrate that with all of the other systems that you've deployed over the last few years? And when you can't own it and you can't control it, then you can't really manage who has access to it and when and for how long and all the rest of it. So there's a big question over the types of applications that we see down here in the enterprise. So what we kind of really need for this industry is something that is going to give us the quality and the experience of telepresence, but it's going to give it at a cost that is going to enable us to be able to deploy that not just into 20 meeting rooms into our organization, but to 20,000 desktop users or mobile users, but without any compromise in quality. So if we take a quick look, and video conferencing is all about perception, because you could get 4 people sat in a video room on a video call and then take them out, then ask them what did they think of the video quality, and pretty much you'd get different answers for all 5 people. But there is this sort of general sort of rule of thumb within the industry that the minimum quality threshold should be at least standard definition per participant face. And the latency, which is crucial, needs to be less than 250 milliseconds end to end. You go outside of any of those, and then we're into the situation where it's kind of more of a hindrance than a help. And latency is actually quite often underestimated. You know, you can also sometimes kind of see through the pixelation, but with the latency, you kind of get that walkie-talkie effect. And that's probably the second biggest killer of video conferencing. So, you know, if we take a look at what's out there in the marketplace today, we have this kind of sliding scale where we've got, you know, applications for mobiles and desktops. Yes, they are affordable if we ignore the infrastructure costs to support them, but the compromise is that the quality isn't good enough. And most people that we've spoken to said, you know what, it's just too much hassle to think about putting a webcam on a set of headphones into my bag. I'll just use my phone. So the reality is that, well, okay, if you want to be able to use video effectively and you want to get people to use it, then you've got to be kind of at the top of the high-end room systems or telepresence. But, you know, the issue that we've got is the cost and the real estate needed. So what we've done at Vidyo, and we'll talk a little bit about how we've done this and the technology that changes that have taken place, is been able to give our user base the ability to decide whatever device that they want to use to access video, but without compromising on that quality. So I live down in the deepest depths of Dorset. I've got the worst network possible. It's like 250k upload on a good day, and if it's cloudy, it's even worse. And I've not quite worked out that one right now. So when I'm at home, I'm on a pretty poor wireless network, so I just use my iPad. I have that set up, it's online, I can place and receive calls, and because of the iPad, its processing power, it sits well on that type of network. And when I get to the office, then I just run up my MacBook and I take calls on that. And you know, a lot of people, when we're on calls, are like, really, you're on an iPad? And that's the nice thing about it. It's, you know, people, you know, they are wowed by the technology and they are wowed about the experience that they deliver. But for me, my choice is, and I use my MacBook or I use my iPad. Although there are technologies from Vidyo that we have that allow us to deploy into the meeting rooms, to deploy into telepresence room, my personal work style is that I'm very rarely in the office and I'm very rarely sat in front of a VC system. But that doesn't mean I can't use the technology, because I have it on my desktop and I have it on my iPad. What's interesting, and this has only just started to creep back into our industry. All of the analysts sort of 15 years ago were saying, oh, this time next year, the whole video conferencing industry is really going to explode. It's really going to take off. And they said that for about 3 years on a row, and then realized, actually, it hasn't taken off for all the reasons that we've just discussed. But we are seeing now, things are changing, and the analysts, and this is a quote from Gartner, are predicting that by 2015, there'll be 200 million HD video devices being used in our industry, which is fairly impressive 3 years to go, when you actually realize that only 200,000 HD room systems were sold worldwide in 2010. So, great. I'm very happy with that statement. If even half of that or a quarter of that happens, you know, it's going to put us in a very good position. But there's some things that have to change in order for us to be able to get there.
My generation, my generation.